Nearly 1 billion people worldwide lack access to electricity, with the majority located in rural South Asia and sub-Saharan Africa. Rural electrification is a priority in many developing countries, and policymakers have emphasized its importance for economic development and poverty alleviation. But to what extent do investments in last-mile electrification deliver economic benefits? This paper investigates that question in the context of RGGVY, India's massive national rural electrification program. Launched in 2005, RGGVY sought to expand domestic and commercial electricity access in over 400,000 rural villages across 27 Indian states. At the time, India was home to the world's largest unelectrified population, with 57% of rural households lacking grid connections. The program sought to connect new villages to the grid, while also upgrading infrastructure and expanding access in already connected locations. To estimate causal effects, the paper exploits two features of RGGVY's implementation. First, districts were sorted into two waves of funding. The first was authorized under India's 10th five-year plan and received funding for electrification between 2005 and 2008. The second was authorized under the 11th plan and received funds between 2008 and 2011. 23 of 27 states contain both 10th and 11th plan districts, and this staggered rollout allows the authors to compare 10th plan districts to a control group of similar districts that received funding later or not at all. Additionally, under the 10th plan, villages were only eligible for electrification if they contained at least one neighborhood larger than 300 people, according to the 2001 census. This enables a complementary village-level analysis in which the authors compare similar single neighborhood villages that lie just on either side of the cutoff. These village-level results derive from a sample of over 10,000 villages with close to 300 people, while the district-level comparisons encompass nearly all of rural India. And the results show that RGGVY substantially increased electrification. These figures compare electricity access and usage in 2011 between villages who were barely eligible for first-wave funding and those that were barely ineligible. Eligibility caused a 3.8 percentage point increase in the share of villages reporting all-sector electricity access, with the results driven by an increase in commercial power access. The program provided commercial power to 1 in 13 barely eligible 300-person villages that previously lacked access, and increased average commercial power supply by 14%. On the domestic side, RGGVY electrified 1 in 7 previously unconnected rural households in first-wave districts, and increased average household electricity consumption by 13%. Consistent with these findings, satellite-derived measures of nighttime brightness increase in treated villages precisely when first-wave districts started receiving funds. Yet, despite these gains in electrification, RGGVY had only limited impact on medium-run economic outcomes. On average, there is no statistically significant effect on per capita consumption, poverty, or demographics, nor are there meaningful effects on employment, firm outcomes, or education levels. This stands in sharp contrast to the economic improvements promised by policymakers, but it's worth noting that RGGVY did not electrify all villages and rural households. Would full electrification have yielded greater economic impact? To answer this, the authors scale their estimates of the program's economic impact by its effect on electrification. They estimate that in small villages, even a shift from zero to full electrification is unlikely to result in large increases in consumption spending, but in larger villages, it leads to a near doubling of per capita expenditures. This difference appears to be driven by differing capacities for structural transformation. These figures show the impact of RGGVY on both the number of firms and the number of firm employees in villages of different size. While the program had no effect on firm growth in smaller villages, it led to a 10% increase in the number of firms and a 9% increase in the number of firm employees in large villages. This suggests that unlike their smaller counterparts, large villages are able to capitalize on expanded electricity access by shifting production into firms and thereby altering patterns of production and consumption. Correspondingly, a cost-benefit analysis accounting for the upfront costs of electrification and the estimated village-wide benefits over 20 years indicates that full electrification is benefit-cost negative in small villages and benefit-cost positive in large villages. And so, these results demonstrate that while rural electrification has been a priority in many countries, the economic benefits may not always outweigh the costs of electrifying low-population areas. Targeting these programs can improve their efficiency and increase the likelihood that investments in last-mile infrastructure translate into meaningful economic gains. To read more on this topic, you can check out the paper's references to other related work. There are many papers on the development effects of infrastructure projects, including those studying first-mile versus last-mile investments, and work on electrification in particular.